If you're not called to this, please do something else, because this is not easy.
Like, how big of a weight is that? Do you ever think about that kind of stuff?
Pastoring is not for people who are insecure, but I'm still a little bit terrified. And earlier, the Bible does say those who teach the word will be judged more severely, right. And it says that.
If you could go back in time and do it all again, would we still be sitting here having this conversation?
This is the Gospel Sunnyside Up with PK and Joey.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. It's the Gospel Sunnyside Up. I'm Joey.
Hey, I'm Pastor Carl. I'm Joey's sidekick. We're just having fun, just having conversations. Really, it's we don't have any script. It's pretty unscripted. We kind of think about what we might like to talk about. If you ever come up with something, say, hey, chat about this or do that, then we'd love to know.
We would love to know
what you'd like to talk about. We're not trying to be theologians or get real deep. We're just trying to have conversations. So I hope you enjoy it, have fun, and give us some feedback. Subscribe, share, do all that kind of stuff. Do that thing. We'd really appreciate it.
Unless it sucks, then don't.
Just know this, that honest to God, it's Joey and I do this anyways, and that's really what it comes out of. It's just having breakfast and and having fun. So we're going to kind of do that while the tape's running, just for
a good old shooting the breeze session.
Shooting the breeze.
Well, shooting the breeze.
So, do you watch any of the NCAA ladies tournament, all that stuff? You watch any of that?
I did not. No. Man,
I tell you, I really thought it was great.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was really good. And like Caitlin Clark played for Iowa, and just amazing. I mean, she has just really shifted women's basketball. The profile of it's just radically changed.
Good.
But she was the number one draft pick. Number one draft pick.
Sorry.
Number one draft pick going to the Indiana Fire, I think it is. I could be wrong.
Indiana Fire? That's a sick name for a team.
She's going to get paid $72,000 a year to play professional basketball. I'm just like, Lord have mercy.
Probably up that up a little bit.
That's wrong. I just, wow. I mean, how many millions of people got pulled into women's basketball, and she's changed the profile of that. And I just felt like some of the highest paid women in that sport are, $200,000 or $300,000 would be highly paid in that. I just thought that's wrong. That sense of equity's got to shift.
It does. But then again, she gets paid $70,000 to play basketball.
I think she
go all over the world, probably stay in a bunch of cool hotels.
Nike's giving her an 8-figure contract and designing her own personal shoe. So she has her own shoe. Yeah.
Did you see the film about Jordans?
I did not. Was that good?
I didn't see it. It just came up in my head, so I said it.
Yeah.
It's a problem.
You watch shows? You got a favorite show?
Do I have a favorite show? Shogun was cool.
I watched Shogun right now.
I liked Shogun. That was cool.
Episode coming up this week. The only problem with that is I get sleepy.
Then it's too much to read the Japanese.
I keep reading, so I got to rewind it.
Read English.
And I'm like,
me too.
I'm like, that's rough. You got to be. I find myself usually I get home late, and if I want to dumb myself out before I go to sleep, then I put that something on. But I'm going like, wow, I can't just doze on this one because sometimes if it's dialogue, I can close my eyes and doze. But I got to. Anyways, what's going on, man? What's happening?
What's happening
today?
I thought we were just gonna sit here and talk about TV shows.
TV shows.
I got my Ninja Turtle shirt on. It's actually a new pickup today.
My kids were not allowed to watch the Teenage Ninja Turtles
back in the day.
My wife wouldn't let them watch the Smurfs either.
Wow,
because Shell said the Smurfs were little blue demons, and Shell thought it was really weird there was only one girl. She was just troubled by the whole thing all the way around. So we went through a whole season where we didn't even watch TV. It was kind of weird. But then we had a TV just so I could watch CBC and watch the Leafs on Saturday.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I watched the Leafs. I was like, CBC, where are we going with this?
But the weird thing about it was the only thing that we could see a lot of was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I said, we got to get cable Buffy just so we can turn that channel.
Sarah Michelle Gellar and David Boreanaz, they had some chemistry on screen. It was good.
Just the show, I just did not dig it. So anyways.
At least it's better than Twilight. Vampires cannot live in sunlight. Anywho, moving on. Today we're gonna talk about you.
Well, gosh,
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah. But we're gonna.
Nah,
I'd like
not
to.
me.
Yeah.
Only my experiences.
Yeah, we're gonna specify it to pastoring.
Wow.
And so I wanna know, like, there's a bunch of questions. So why don't we start with how you got into pastoring and why you're a pastor?
I was walking
Is that a
down
good
the
intro?
street one day, and the heavens opened, and the angel Gabriel came down, descended out of heaven, and all I could see was, no, I'm just kidding. That didn't happen. You know, when people ask me the very first time I felt personally called to ministry, it was a lady named Norma Rideout, and she taught the Sunday school at the Apostolic Church on Gordon Avenue in Verdun, right in Montreal, and on a little concrete floor. And I'm sure I wasn't paying attention. I'm sure she raised her voice a bit to correct me, but Norma said, "Carl, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel unto every creature."
Bam.
And she said that, and it literally cut right through. And I had to be somewhere maybe between 7 and 9. But when she said that, it immediately was written on my heart. Because my dad was the associate pastor there at the time, and we would go back to church the next Sunday, and you'd have to come to Sunday school with your memory verse. And being the kids from the associate pastor, he didn't want to be embarrassed. He wanted to make sure that the kids knew the memory verse. So this was weird, because on the way home, I was telling them, do you guys want to hear the memory verse? And they said, what is that? I said, it's, Carl, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel unto every creature. And, that stuck with me, and that pierced me. And I really felt from that day forward, somewhere there was going to be a claim on my life to, in a full-time way, minister the good news of the gospel globally. Globally.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you have.
I have. Such a crazy blessing. I've been able to preach the gospel on every continent, all over the world.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It is pretty wild, Joey. It actually blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. But that was the first place where I would have to say that was the first place where I felt I heard a call from God that there's a claim on my life, that there will be a day that I will be called to.
Had you heard that? I mean, I know you said you're between 7 and 9, but had you heard that scripture before?
You know what? I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd heard that before. I knew that I heard it then.
Right.
I heard it then.
Right.
And it was like, bam, just hit me.
That's crazy.
I mean, I never as a kid knew that's the Great Commission, that's what that was. That was a word right from God through the mouth of Norma Rideout. And whenever I saw Norma, she passed away a few years ago, but I would go minister back in Montreal, and when she was there, I'd say, Norma, you're the first woman to thank God. Yeah. She was the superintendent of that Sunday school for probably 40 years.
Wow,
and
that's
I was
commitment.
Like, Norma, thank you so much for serving children. And I said, and you touched my life.
Dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And I said, your faithfulness to serve children is why I'm here today. So,
wow,
yeah, really cool.
That's great. Yeah, that's crazy. Just that one verse, that one day,
that one lady who,
right? Because she probably said 100 different things, but it was that one verse, that one time that really just kind of penetrated, and just Right.
But what a beautiful ministry to children. I tell people here at this church that Kelly pastors the church. I just babysit the adults, because she's dealing with the next generation.
Dude.
She's dealing with people. She's framing the concept of God with the kids that come and the families that trust us, and the families are doing it too. Mom and Dad are doing it too. But when we gather corporately, the nursery is this big room with all the adults in it, and they're the ones with the big gushy diapers, I take care of them, but the kids.
Yeah.
Man, the kids.
Yeah.
I've always said that people ask me what's important in ministry. I said the most important thing is the next generation. Right. And that should be paramount. Right. And we should make sure that that's serious. The first thing I did when I pastored, the first piece of furniture or equipment we bought was a crib. And we put a 6-pack crib rack in the nursery.
Wow.
And I remember then that the people were like, why are we doing that? We don't even have any babies. They said,
but we
that's
will.
why. And I said,
Can you see?
I said that a strong church has a strong nursery.
Huh. There's so many babies in our nursery.
There's a lot of kids.
There's like probably between 8 and 12,
we had
little babies.
18 babies. And 18? I tell you had to remember to change the diaper pail, because if you came back in on Tuesday after a day off on Monday, the church stinketh. So that's part of the usher policy. Empty the pail, dude. Empty the pail.
But we don't have to do that anymore.
No.
So
yeah,
that's good.
So I grew up in a pastor's home.
Yep.
So I kind of grew up born again, all that kind of stuff. But that really was a strong call on my life, and I had many times that was revisited, many visiting preachers, visiting prophetic people who would call me out and speak things over my life. Kind of creepy stuff sometimes. I just started dating Cheryl, and we were a little bit late for this meeting one night. We kind of slipped in the back. We're in the back, and the fellow was already preaching. He was a prophet from the States, and I was there, and we weren't in the service that long, and he reached us and said, "You son in the back there, come on up here." And I was like, he says, "Yeah, you." And I went up, and he prophesied over my life. He says that you are going to touch the nations, and he spoke a pretty significant word over my life. And I'd actually heard that before, even as a kid. God revisited that with me several times. So, but when we got back to the bench, I sat down. Cheryl moved over. I moved over, and then she moved over again, and I moved over. And then I went, "What are you doing?" She says, "We better just stop this now, because I want no part of that. No part of that." So I was brought up in church. Cheryl was brought up in a family that were really surrounded by alcoholics and brokenness and all those things. So, but I was brought up in church, But so that's where I felt the first call of God in my life.
How was your first sermon? Did it go as you planned in your head? Was there any kind of hiccups? Well, that first time where you get up there and now it's like, okay, the worship is done and everybody stops and everybody's quiet and now they're looking at you. Okay. This is your first time.
My first time.
Sure.
First time I ever preached in a church on a Sunday as the primary speaker. I'm the speaker on a Sunday. I think I was about 21 years old.
Wow.
And we were at a youth retreat, and I took a group of kids from our church in Peterborough to the retreat, and I was asked to be the speaker on the Sunday morning at the church that was sponsoring this. And you know what I preached on, Joey?
No.
I preached out of 1 Peter that said, "Be holy as I am holy."
Wow.
Yes.
That's quite the opening sermon.
It really was. And I said, I don't know about you, but if we're all completely honest, when I read that, I have to say, I quit now. Because if that is the level, if that's what qualifies, if that's the standard for a relationship with a holy God, I have to be honest. This is never going to happen. Wow. Never. And I said, so I must lean into that passage then. Because in the full revelation of God and his love for me, why is he saying that? Right. Why is he setting the bar so high? Right. Why would he do that to me? Why would he tell me to come and then make the price of admission so high that I'm left outside in the cold? And so I talked about, that's not it.
No, that's not
and I said it is holiness. Yeah. But the holiness that God demands is a gracious holiness that he provides. And the holiness that is expected of me to walk in a full relationship with him, it was purchased for me at the cross through the finished work of Christ. And I can remember the pastor after that coming to me going, wow. Yeah.
Because it's authentic and it's relatable.
Well,
when you bring up a big verse like that, it's like,
grace is a major theme in our life. It's 100%. A major theme in this fellowship, 100%. Like a major theme. Yep. Like it's not a little deal, it's a big deal. It is.
Grace
it's
and love.
Deal. And you know why it's a big deal? Because what is grace? Grace isn't a doctrine. It isn't a teaching. Grace is Jesus. Because Moses brought the law, but Jesus came and Jesus brought grace.
Grace is like the engine that empowers you.
Jesus doesn't teach us grace or even bring us grace. Jesus is grace personified. Right. And so, and I don't even know why, Joe. I don't even know why. But very, very early in life, that was a walking revelation with me. And I always felt unashamedly to be open about my brokenness and my failure and my lack. And so the first time I preached,
be something.
Love God.
Love God.
And sin openly.
And sin openly.
Or I think someone else said, love God and do as you please. But when you love God and when you're baptized in the love of God,
Right.
the rest is easy.
Yeah.
It really is.
Because like if we like mess up or whatever, I mean, you know, be open about it, because he's not there ready to whack you.
No, he's not. Oh my goodness, he's so nuts about us.
Yeah.
Even our failures, he thinks they're cute. You know, it's just something else. So my first time as the pastor.
Yep.
Wow. I'm not sure I can actually remember what the sermon was. You know, I remember when I was ordained. I was ordained at the church in Toronto, and I had to give a response to my ordination.
Okay.
And so that was a Sunday, and I had to share then. And it was Mother's Day, and my mom and my dad were there. Oh God. So
It's okay.
I preached on in John where he turned the water into wine, and I taught on that one verse that says he turned the water into wine, thus he revealed his glory. And that miracles are a revelation of the goodness and the glory of God. But the beautiful thing is that the mother of Jesus said, and my mom said to me, whatever he tells you to do, do it. And that's what my mom taught me. So I wanted people to know, here's some really good mothers. Here's some really good mothers' advice, you know. Yeah. Whatever he tells you to do.
Whatever he tells you to do. Because he's not going to lead you astray.
No.
And it's always going to be out of love and compassion.
And he said, Mom, it's not my time. And she said, shh.
Yeah.
And she said, whatever he tells you to do, you do it. And Jesus went, all right. And she tugged a miracle outside the parameters of time. She tugged on a miracle. Because there are rules, there are boundaries, but you know, people who touch his heart, you know, he's a rule breaker.
Yeah, he is
all over the place. The Syrophoenician woman, it's not time. I can't give the bread to dogs. And she said, "Woof woof."
Even the dogs get
woof,
crumbs.
Woof. Yeah. And God is a God who, it's about people. It's not about my rules. It's about people. I didn't make a bunch of rules and say, let's create some people to obey this stuff. No, he had people. He said, let's have some boundaries. Let's have some structure.
Parameters.
So we know it works best. But you know,
and so we can build like an actual society.
But inside those parameters, you really know the heart of God. Just like David did time travel, and he reached into a new covenant, and he put them in front of the ark, and he said, just enjoy the presence of God. No sacrifice. Do the sacrifice up on the hill over there in Gibeon, but here, without barriers, we're just going to stand and worship in his presence. Man. And David had a New Testament context of worship because he said, I think I know what he really wants. What he really wants. What he really, really wants. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. So that's a few answers.
Okay,
I don't know.
So that's a few answers.
Yeah.
So were you comfortable at that point? Or did it take you like a little bit of time to kind of get in the groove and get in the flow of the whole thing? Because it's not just like getting up on a platform and giving a message on a Sunday. That's part of your job, but that's you know, there's a whole bunch of other stuff. There's like life stuff.
Yeah, the preaching stuff is fun. Like I actually really enjoy preaching, and that's fun. Pastoring it's way more than that. Pastoring is highly personal, and pastoring is not for people who are insecure, because you get picked on, you get judged, you get. And pastoring is really, really hard now, because I mean, I might have had a few people that could call me and tell me I was a bum.
But now social media.
Now you can just toss it on Facebook, and you read stuff about yourself, and people trash you and say stuff, and I just think people could be really, really cruel. Like, what do you think I'm doing this for? You know, and if you have ego or you're insecure, pastoring, serving people will rip that out of you. Before I pastored Joy, I was in marketing and in sales, and I had accounts and people I would visit, and at the end of each year I would take the bottom 20% of my people and I would toss them to inside sales, because I don't want to waste my time with people who aren't paying me. And funny thing is, first year I looked at the address list of our church, and I looked at who's really supporting and who really isn't, and I kind of said, the Lord, I said, can I just delete the bottom 20%, because I was in such a habit of doing that. And he said, no, the bottom 20% are the ones you need to serve the most. And I was like, wow, this thing is really on its head. And he said, those are the ones that you give yourself for. And, I've had people like Paul. You know Paul. Paul's been in this church since before I was, and what a personal friend and a joy to pastor. Never caused me a moment of grief. And yet there's people just takers, and yet the Lord says, you give your very best to every single person. I used to try to preach my best sermons to 6 people who came back on a Sunday night. And I would be nervous about, am I honoring your word tonight, Lord? And I would preach to them like it was a crowd of 1,000. Most of them, their hearing aids, I don't even know if they heard me or not. But you know what? It was a big deal. It was a big deal to serve them.
Right, and that's another one of my questions is like, you are in a special place as a pastor because you are shepherding people. You went to Bible school, you did all of that. You've got all these years of experience and everything else, and people kind of lean on you and draw that out, and it's a big weight to. I mean, I never had children of my own, but like I have a 17-year-old stepson now, and I'm literally one of the main forces in his life, like molding him into the man he is going to be. And I can only assume that it's got to be the same around here too, because people are looking to you, and you have a giant part in like a new person that comes here, or just anybody. You have a giant part in molding that person and kind of framing how we see God and grace and all this other stuff. Like, how big of a weight is that? Do you ever think about that kind of stuff?
Well, believe it or not, Joey, I'm mostly comfortable at home, and I'm comfortable to preach anytime. But I'm still a little bit terrified, I'm still a little bit nervous. And the biggest thing is that I want to be faithful to minister and to care for the flock and feed. And if you want to say preaching is feeding, I want to be sure that I really believe what I'm saying, and that I've really sought God on that, and I'm not just throwing something out there, because I mean, as you were saying earlier, the Bible does say those who teach the word will be judged more severely. I mean, it says that. I'm not fully understanding what that means, but it's there.
For real.
And so I think your heart should genuinely fear what's going across your lips, and I think you should realize it is a very, very holy trust. And yet it says, if you're going to preach the word of God, do it as an oracle of God. So when you preach under the unction of the Spirit of God.
Right.
Be sure that you have prayed your way through that. Be sure that you've soaked it in revelation, and you've soaked it in His presence, so that when you minister, there's an unction to function and minister and be an oracle of God, which is heavy stuff. Because if I say God is speaking through me, how crazy is that? Like God is speaking through me. Pay attention, folks.
Because we have so many examples of like Manson and Jim Jones and all these people who were like cult leaders, and I am the only one that can hear from God, and trust me.
Yes, it was a lot of when I was a kid, Joey. You couldn't fact check the preacher in Google while he was preaching. You can fact check me on the spot.
True story.
I can say something and say, check it out. Like Sunday, I said you can do a fake laugh, and that will affect your body as much as a real laugh. Well, you could Google that right away and say, is he right? And you'd find out I was.
Yes,
but they do that. My wife Googles me. I mean, I'm not at home. I mean, while I'm preaching, she Googles me, and
that's great.
You can fact check the guy, right?
Yeah.
So, but me, when the pastor spoke, I understand that the pastor was truth.
Yep.
And when he spoke, that was the word of God. But now there's a new generation that truth is not absolute, nor is it
subjective. It's your truth.
Yeah, and truth comes through a journey. Truth isn't information. It's formation. It's something that we journey together with, and so it's very different. Even being a pastor generationally, it can be very hard,
Because it's a different world now than it was when your father was pastoring or when your grandfather was pastoring. There's new challenges like this social media and digital age. Like this thing never existed until 15 years ago.
Sure. So preaching the word is a very holy trust. It's something I actually really, really enjoy doing it. And but I'm serious about it,
Yeah.
But pastoring like day to day,
Right.
it's like I was new to the city, walking down the road, and somebody in the neighborhood, they knew we were new in the neighborhood, and when we came up to them, they stopped and said to my daughter, "Hey, little girl, what's your daddy do for a living?" And Carly said, "Oh, he doesn't do anything. He's a preacher." So I was like, "No, I do stuff."
I do stuff.
And my son one time, we were talking to someone, I was sharing with them, they were asking me questions, I was telling them about some of my experiences, and when we turned away and we walked away, Dylan kind of tugged me, he says, "Dad, what was happening there? Were you preaching or were you telling the truth?" I was like, "What?"
I hope it's pretty much the same thing.
I always tell the truth. What do you mean? So it's kind of funny. But preaching's one thing, but pastoring, and it gets different, because when I started pastoring, I came to a church with about 20 to 30 senior citizens, a few younger. That was it. And I literally spent my whole week going to nursing homes. And I had one time where at St. Joseph's Hospital, I had somebody in the psych ward, I had somebody in ICU, I had somebody in the cardiac unit. I had Maisie had just given birth to the twins. I had the twins were in the maternity ward, and I mean, on every floor in emergency, somebody was there. I spent the whole day on all 7 floors of St. Joe's Hospital.
Wow.
So it was a lot of hospital visitation, a lot of shut-in visitation. I went and saw one lady. She had a whole bunch of almonds on the table, and she was talking, and I was eating all the almonds, And then I said, "I'm really sorry, but I ate all your almonds." And she said, "Pastor, that's okay. I already sucked off all the chocolate." So I was like, "Oh, gosh, that's gross."
Is that a joke or is that a real story?
No, that's a joke. But I did have a lot of lovely seniors who, I had one, Joyce Bonnigy, that she wanted me to call before I came, and she would always send one of her support workers to go get me a Swiss chalet chicken. So, and it didn't matter if I'd already eaten, I had to sit with her and have Swiss chalet chicken. So I've been able to serve some beautiful people, and it's a privilege, to be able to, and serve is a big value for us, and it's a big word for us, and so that's a big value. As our church has grown, it's harder to be really intimate and personal with every single person, and so I do want to pastor and serve the leaders that are with us. But one of my favorite days about pastoring, one of the things last night at our leader thing, one of the favorite things that people put on the board, what's one of your favorite things, and one of the people put down Pastor Carl greeting me at the door when I leave, and I went, "That's so good," because that's probably today, as far as pastoring, it's one of the favorite things I get to do, is to run to the door and just greet as many people as I can going out, and because I rarely get to talk to everybody, but that's a little place where I can connect with the people who come here, and because there's another big value around here, ministry's people.
Yes.
And people are important.
People
they're
are
seen,
the reason
they're
that
honored, they're valued, and it's what we do. So if you don't have a passion for people and want to serve people, don't pastor.
Yeah,
so
but
my pastoral professor who taught pastoral ministry, he came into the first first lecture, and he put his briefcase on the desk and stood there, and he said, "If you can do anything else, do it." Do it.
Wow.
And then the next time he came in, I thought, "Is that it?" Like, he left, and he got an hour and a quarter lecture, and he's gone. I thought maybe that's the test.
Just kind of sit there and mull it over.
And he left. I don't know. He said, "That's it. Because if you're not called to this, please do something else. Because this is not easy." I had somebody. Glenn Rowe, who mentors the PhD program at Ivy Business School, he sent me a list the other day of the toughest jobs, and the toughest job number 2 was pastoring.
Really? What was number 1? Alaskan crab fisherman?
I can't remember. I just saw that. But he sent, "Hey, love you, Pastor, and appreciate you." And that's pretty cool.
Well, because it's also like super, super intimate and vulnerable. Like one of my favorite parts of service is in between worship and the word, when you get up and pray, and you literally just like jump into the river. And you just like and it's just, I've always been kind of jealous of that, because I'm depending on the day. Like, if sometimes I'm pretty reserved. I'm just kind of standing with my hands in my pockets, head bobbed. The other times, like, hands in the air, and it's just, I don't know, man. I'm kind of jealous of people who just don't care what other people think, and just do them and allow the Holy Spirit to flow through them. And that's what you do so awesome on there, or sing an entire sermon, or do this or do that. There's like, while you're in those kind of moments, is there any of those thoughts that try to come in? Like, dude, you look friggin' dumb right now.
It's a real free flow. Before I was a preacher, I was a worship leader. And I did a lot of worship leading, and that was kind of a primary thing. And then even as a preacher, I was a worship leader preacher for a long time. So I do love the flow of the Spirit and that whole thing. I could just do hours of that. It's good fun. So,
yeah, that's great, eh?
But the only thing the biggest thing that annoys me, Joey, is if I see someone who might love God a little bit more than I do. That really ticks me off, because I want to be first, So
because you're achieving.
It is. I'm a little bit of a competitor, So.
Okay, so to close off this episode of the podcast, I would like to know a couple of so for anybody that's looking to get into pastoring, that wants some advice about like, how do I get started, yada yada. I would like 2 or 3 of the biggest, like, tips or tricks or life lessons, or just whatever you want to tell people. And then I want to know, if you could go back in time and do it all again, would we still be sitting here having this conversation?
One thing I wish that there was in my life, I went to Bible school, and if you could take the time and go full time and immerse yourself in a significant Bible school, in not a silo of singular thought, but a place of diverse thought, a place where there's various views of theology, a very significant school where it's a really well done, accredited school. Do that. It would do you so well, And Cheryl and I were able to do that, and really blessed our lives. Really was a real solidifying time for us as a family and marriage and everything. And the other thing is, be mentored and continue to be mentored, and find a mentor, someone who can pour into your life, because pastoring can be one of the most lonely things you ever do. And be sure you get a mentor. I have a pastor. I've called my pastor this week, and I miss my dad a lot because he was my pastor.
Yeah.
But hey, there's a couple things right there that I would encourage people that don't get trained, but always be mentored, and always find someone who you can, and you trust their heart and lean into their heart, because a lot of it is caught. A lot of it is caught. And my dad always said, "Here's how it goes, Carl. You ready?" He says, "I do. I do. You watch. We do it together. You do it, and I'll watch you. And then I'll release you to do it." And so that was my dad's whole plan of mentoring.
Wow,
and
that's
stuck
very
with
good.
me very, very clearly, And so I appreciate
teach people how to fish.
I learned so much through watching my parents serve. And my dad was a very good pastor. He loved to serve people, and he was very, very good at it. So I had that honor, and I was blessed.
Okay.
There you go.
And if you could do it all again, knowing everything you know now, knowing all the struggles and everything, because this is 34 years that you've built this up, all those times, the good times, the bad times, the hard times, the vulnerable times, the people who it's like, I poured my life into this person, and like, awesome, you're doing so well, and the times that you
tore your guts out, gutted you. Yeah, lots of that,
So,
if I had it to do all over again, Joey, I'd go to Barbados with Dylan, and we'd have a coffee shop at Dover Beach. No, believe me, I've tried to run, and that's where here's that lesson. If you can do anything else, do it.
Right.
Because if you can, you will.
Right.
And that's why so many people only last less than 2 years in ministry.
Really?
Because you'll find the exit sign if you have one, and you'll be pressured to find it if you can, because this will force you into a place of the most selflessness that you ever known. And sometimes some of the loneliest things and greatest challenges on your marriage and your family. But it's not easy. But
give everything of yourself, and what do you have after?
I'm blessed, though. God's been so good to me.
100%.
And this is a beautiful church, and the people I get to serve with, like you guys, you and Jan, and our leadership team, I'm so honored to have some of the very, very best people in my life.
Thank you.
So So I'm having a lot of fun, and I want to have fun. And I've learned a lot about me, and I've done a lot of stupid things, said a lot of stupid things, and
me too, man.
But I thank God for a church that has let me be me and has let me be vulnerable, and yet at the same time has had wisdom enough to clothe me in priestly garments and say, feed me the word, Pastor. And they let me be real, and yet honored me in their hearts as a man of God in their lives. And it's been a wonderful journey.
Because,
So there you go.
You're a unique bird, Pastor.
I'm a bird for sure. I don't know. Most people might watch this and go, gosh, I never knew the pastor had so many emotional leanings. It's so weird, eh?
That's great.
Yeah.
Because you always like to say you're not a feeler, but
I'm really not, which is really bizarre, eh? So somewhere in the line, there's feeler somewhere. I bleep up in the thinker a little bit. But, But we got to say goodbye because we're running overtime, and I got to get Dylan home to get a cheeseburger and do something, eh? So
cheeseburger would be good.
Cheeseburger be good.
Ice cream, maybe.
So hey, you guys, come on, it's us hanging out. And again, honestly, we'll talk about anything. I don't know if it's meaningful to you, and if any of this is helpful to you. We'd love to talk.
But
talk to you.
Podcast is like Netflix, man. You can always find another show. There's always room for another one. So watch ours.
Yeah, because true story. Or Shogun, pretty awesome.
Yeah, or Shogun.
Yeah.
Shout out to Sarah Michelle Gellar. Good job on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's bringing it all around.
That's a crazy show. Yeah, I don't know. Never did anything for me. All right, hey, good night, everybody. Love you guys. Bless you. Enjoy. That's it. We're at Gospel Sunnyside Up.